Christian. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Glad you have me here today.
Thank you for coming to the show. I have read a lot about you online and on LinkedIn, and I saw that you have quite a remarkable career in the tech industry at a very young age. So I thought I should bring you to the show so that you can share your own journey. Welcome to the Verified Geek podcast.
Thank you. A pleasure to share. Yeah, the last post on LinkedIn has I've been getting a lot of attention on LinkedIn. I say after
Oh, good.
after that post, it's really went super viral. Didn't imagine it will it would
Yeah,
go
I think I
that
know the
viral.
post that you're talking about. I think
Yeah.
this is the post that I saw as well, which is quite remarkable. We'll get to that. Let's just start of how your whole career journey started. So just tell me a little bit about you. What did you study? How did you end up working in tech?
So yeah, my name is Christian. I'm from Denmark, or from a city called Aarhus, which is the second biggest city in Denmark. It's known as this university town, especially good for IT work. So yeah, it's where I'm raised. It's where I went to school. I went to school at the engineering school here. Took the actually just the bachelor degrees here. So that's like a 3.5 years education you do here. And I finished school at 23. So yeah, while doing my doing this engineering education, I was doing a lot of side projects, which kind of and side projects and a relevant internship, which kind of set me up for a good first job. So that's basically like the beginning of my career. And yeah, I was at the engineering school. You have to like figure out which direction you want to go in as an engineer. Like, do you want to work with robots, or do you want to work more with like electrical circuits and hardware, or do you want to get into software? And I figured out like making apps and working with the web and general stuff that you can put on the app store, or you can you can make actually applicable applications with was my passion. So naturally that was also like where I started with my first job, and my internship went in that direction, and also it's what I'm doing now, and teaching other people how to do.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. So what was your first job in the tech industry?
So I worked in the biggest bank in Denmark. So yeah, I was kind of like split between this consultant job as an employed consultant, not a freelance yet, just an employed consultant where you had to work a lot of hours, and I got the sense it wasn't necessarily it wasn't really worth the squeeze. It might be if you really were to stick to the job, but it would be like an investment where you need to work you up in the ladders in that corporate company. Whereas with this financial firm, the big bank I was working for, I got really good terms and good salary and stuff from the beginning. So I think by far I was the best paid from my school for my first job. And
Yeah, I wish I knew
I was
that
able
when
to,
I first graduated.
yeah, it's definitely where you get paid the most is and in also best terms. In Denmark you get some crazy terms, like you get 7 weeks of paid vacation, which is like
Oh, nice. That's
pretty
great.
compared to like American standards where you get like barely 2 weeks. so
Wow,
so
that's
that's
nice.
pretty crazy. And this job I was pretty ambitious. So I was also I was one of the only ones who know how to work with Angular. So and I was kind of doing full stack development at that time with Angular and .NET. But I was one of the only ones who really knew how to do Angular development, and I was on this small project where I was allowed to work as many hours as I wanted. So and I got paid for every hour I worked. So I was basically able to make quite a lot of money since 23, and I was just working, probably 60 hours a week at that point, just giving it all I got, because I was pretty hungry, to get to a sweet place.
Oh,
So
nice.
so yeah, I was sticking to that job for around almost 2 years, and then I remember I had this talk from my boss where I was like trying to get a salary raise, and I remember one day we had the meeting and he said, here's what we can do, Christian. I can offer you, I think like a 4-5% raise, something that was not really making a difference anyways, because I was already pretty highly paid, and we got all these crazy terms. But I started figuring out, because I knew a bunch of people that were doing freelancing.
Right.
So I figured out that freelancers, they could actually, the entry level of freelancing was like double amount of what I was already making there. And then I was being contacted by this recruiter who was working with for a while, and I was trying to like get started at like the right contract, where I guess as many people who leave the full-time job to start start your own company or go freelance, there's always the risk of the safety concern that you might have a period of time where you're not making any money, where you might lose your client, or you're getting a lot of the safety of being employed, that you lose that. So I got this 1-year contract where I was paid twice. I was already being paid by this bank, so that was kind of like a no-brainer. And as you said before that, I was also looking into doing blogging, which and specializing my my offer as a consultant, which was instead of doing freelancing as a full stack, or someone who can, because I actually knew a bunch of different programming languages, and I knew how to do .NET server development, and I knew how to do app development. I even done like iOS development, Android development, and different web development. I figured out I should focus on one thing, and then just had that as my main selling point, which was Angular, but Angular web development, which became my main selling point. So I started blogging about, I set up a website, I started blogging about Angular development. I started to like just focusing my whole online presence, my CV, my resume, everything on just Angular development. And then I got this contract where they actually were looking for an Angular expert. And that's set me off, in a very, gave me some competitive advantages that, that kind of set me apart from a lot of people. And even though I only had like 2 years of like full-time professional experience, I was actually able to compete with people that say they had like 5, 10, or 20 years of experience, because these two technologies, like especially like today, where there's new web frameworks, there's all these hybrid app frameworks, maybe new Devops frameworks that only been around for a couple of years, that makes total years of experience irrelevant. Because if you have 20 years of Java experience, what does that matter when the job says you need to learn about like a hybrid or a web framework? That's irrelevant. So I figured that out. If I just specialize my whole marketing on just Angular, which has only been around for around 4 or 5 years at that point, then basically I could skip the queue of applicants, because most people that apply for these jobs, they're not as specialized in that the job as me. And it's the same thing. If you're looking for a lawyer, let's say you are going through a divorce or something like that, would you take like the lawyer who can say he can do like 10 different things, or would you take the highly successful divorce lawyer who has like the best track record? And it's maybe like more expensive. Maybe he costs the double of what the other lawyers costing, but a lot of people would be willing to pay for that, because he's specialized and he got like a track record in just that niche. So I figured out the same thing with picking a newer framework like Angular, and that worked quite well,
that makes sense.
That
makes sense a lot especially in the new world of technologies, where you have so many frameworks to choose from. Especially new junior devs are getting confused, because they're like, what shall I do? Shall I do this? Shall I do React, Vue, Angular? Like, where shall I focus on? Because they get really, there's so much choice, they get really confused. Whereas the answer is this: just pick one and learn that one really well. Yeah, I completely agree with you. So did you become a software consultant by starting that blog? What does a software consultant do really? And how did you end up being one?
Well, the blog helped. So I was basic. So my strategy with blogging, and also what I tell other people to do, in the beginning, you will not have a lot of following on your blog. You will not have a lot of search traffic. Basically, you will have your traffic coming from wherever you're posting it from. So in the beginning, I was just posting it in relevant forums for Angular developers, and most importantly, I was linking to my blog from my resume. So so I wanted people that were reading my resume to read my blog also, because the blog is the proof that I knew what I was talking about. And when people are reading your blog and they like, because I figured out you just need the critical threshold for having success with a blog and actually using it to get a job. I would say you just need 3 blog posts that are good and that demonstrate, some kind of, some specialized knowledge in an area. And then people are sold on your skills. And that means they will not screen you that hard on the interview. It's more like like logistical, can we make this work agreement talk, rather than actually screening your technical skills, which is a very good place to be in. So yeah, that's what that's how I used the blog in the beginning. I just wrote 3 blog posts. I was linking to the blog post from my resume, and I was working with this recruiter who was handing my resume to this client where we're looking for an Angular expert. And we did the interview. It was done in 1 hour, and like 2 hours later that day, I got the contract handed without any technical, screening, any technical questions really, or any kind of like coding interview of that kind of stuff, because that's what the blog is giving you. It's giving you credibility.
That's pretty clever.
Instead of just writing that you know how to do it in the resume, because who isn't doing that? You can actually make the proof. The blog is the proof, because you cannot fake 3 blog posts of, let's say, 1,500 words of like code snippets and specialized knowledge. You cannot really fake that. So that's a proof.
Yeah. Nice. Very interesting. So I read on your resume that your consulting company also does DevOps. So how are you involved in that? In what way are you involved in like DevOps consulting?
So basically, DevOps is part of the front end work. So currently I'm focusing on normally I work as a front end tech lead when I'm hired as a consultant for companies. So DevOps is definitely an important part of that. When you're the tech of a project, you need to learn how to set up the DevOps pipeline for running tests on the front end and deploying the front ends, all that stuff. It's part of the work. I don't really believe that it should be delegated to a specialized DevOps team, operations team and such. I think the front end tech lead should handle that as well. That's why I'm also teaching it in my course. It's a relevant part of my course. I'm teaching people how to set up a DevOps pipeline that can work very efficiently with running the test and deploying it. Because I believe it's definitely in these DevOps teams, it's which is like most of the modern agile teams that companies work with today. I believe that should be self-contained in the teams to minimize the amount of handovers. Because as soon as you have like these like functional splits, then you kind of lose the speed and the independency of the different teams, which I guess it's hurting the whole where people actually are trying to get to with the independent teams.
Okay, that makes sense. I guess in a smaller project it makes sense. I think big corporations, they have so many people and so many projects, and the projects are becoming way too complicated at some point that's when they decide to hire new people as DevOps. And to be fair, DevOps are like usually like X front end or X back end. But I know what you're talking about. So have you only done freelancing, or have you also worked in a job as a permanent employee?
That's what I did in the bank, my first job, which was almost 2 years.
Okay.
So that was a regular job, the first one for 2 years, but that's the only. And then I did my internship in this kind of consulting company where I did a bunch of different projects. And then I had some of my own SaaS startups doing college.
Okay.
which
That's nice.
wasn't really I wasn't making much money of them. Some of them I made a little bit of money on it, but mostly I did it for the experience and to put it on my resume when I for when I applied for my first job, which is helping a lot. And I definitely recommend people doing that. I think that's actually even more important than grades, because grades is just like a threshold thing. You just need to have you just need to not have terrible grades. But if you have a lot of like relevant side projects as you finish college, that's going to help you a lot more, because again, that's proof. You can go to the job interview, you can flip up your phone, you can show that app you built, which I actually done a bunch of times. I actually shown the app at the job interview. And I remember my first job, when I was trying to get my first job, we were just talking about my side projects all the way, which I also did in the same frameworks as the first job was requiring. So there was also, I did some Angular projects, side projects before. So that's definitely the best thing you can do to get a first job, a good first job.
I actually, in an interview, I actually showed an app that I did as a side project, nothing really big. And I agree with you. This is actually one of the best ways for software engineers to get good jobs, because this is proof, and even show like part of the code, and explain the code so that they can get convinced that you're actually the one that did the app. Whereas a lot of junior developers are just focusing on like interview questions. What's the number one interview question that will come up? Whereas they should be really focusing on doing something on the side just to learn. So do you think it's quite a big important thing? And I think that's why your post went viral like that, because you said I'm 27 years old. I made a lot of money by just doing this for just a few years. So I'll tell you now, the reason why it went viral is because most of the software engineers that saw this, they were like, what? Like, how is that possible? Like I am one of them, right? And I know that it is doable 100%, but it's not that everyone has the same career and the same journey, let's say. So do you think freelancing is like the best way of software engineers to make money?
I think it's kind of, I see it like as 3 steps in your career. And of course, it's dependent on like not everyone is like saying, would everyone want to be the lead singer in a band? No, of course not. Some likes to play the guitar, some likes to play drums, some likes to play bass, we have these different roles, and it's like what you want out of it. I think let's say if you wanna like maximize the amount of money and freedom you have, then I would say it's a good step on the way. And for some people I know they make $1 million a year having freelance consultant business. They travel the world, have plenty of money for everything they want to do. I would say they have a pretty sweet life. So for them, I think it's perfect. If you have but there's also like trade-offs. If you have, let's say you have a PhD in something and you want to work for a big company, and let's say you want to work with some kind of AI technology or something like that, you can only work for in that big corporation. Then probably freelancing would not be the right move, because you're more in it to for the research and just growing your knowledge with other smart people. So probably in that case, it's not what you want. For me, it definitely had some sacrifices. I was moving from Denmark to Switzerland to get a better job. That's also part of it. And a lot of people that saw the post were like, "Oh, I can't do that, because in my country we cannot be paid like that." Guess what? I moved as well. And I was blogging, which no one was. So I created online presence, which gave me opportunities to move. It's even easier if you live in Silicon Valley. Then it's even easier to make, when you can make a lot more than even the numbers I posted. It's even easier. I did it kind of in a, not the best place, even not the best place to do it, honestly. So sometimes you need to move. It is true. It is harder in some places. If you're from Nigeria or India, it is harder, and you probably best option if you were to follow the path what will be to move straight up, honestly, which I did as well. And I could do it because I put in the work and put in the online presence and credibility that made me able to do that. I believe you can do that as well. If you do the same thing, you will get the same opportunities. Will it be harder? Probably, if you are in certain places, but I believe you can do it as well, especially if you, like me, are willing to like sacrifice everything to do it for a couple of years, which I did, like moving to Switzerland without knowing anybody, and jumping on some opportunity there. Yeah.
Okay, so would you go and work for like the big companies like Google and Microsoft?
Like as an employee,
Yeah,
as a freelancer.
I'm guessing, yeah, like a permanent staff, because your career right now is obviously quite big, but it seems that you're always in charge, and you started making money out of it. So why really bother becoming a permanent employee? But I was just wondering, if Google or Microsoft makes you an offer to go and work for them, would you do it, or do you prefer like freelancing?
I would probably prefer freelancing because it works quite well for what I want. So one of the things that also interests me with freelancing is the variety of projects and people you work with. So normally I've been like changing projects either every 6 months, every year, which kind of accelerated my learning path. And that kind of helped me become a better teacher when I teach this stuff for my coding school, because I got all these different insights for companies that you can only get if you actually have been seeing a lot of companies from the inside. Even if you're like Microsoft or Google, then you only know that setup, and you probably know a lot of stuff that is specific to, let's say, Google, but cannot really apply to other companies. By actually being a freelancer that worked with a lot of different companies, you can give advice that applies more like in general terms, because you have like what actually works for different companies, and you're seeing a lot of different companies. So for what I'm doing with the teaching and consultancy, it definitely helps, and I would lose that edge if I were to stick around for just one company. Not saying that it couldn't make sense for a while. Normally what I give advice to go through like these, I was about to talk about these different steps I see in the career path. So in the beginning, I would definitely pick a job that gives you the best learning experience as possible. So that means relevant technologies and good people you work with. That should be like the two main things. And that's also why I picked, one of the reasons I picked my place, because it's like relevant technologies and I work with smart people. Because that is what's going to be most valuable in the end, and that's going to be the best investment of your time to work in such a place. So maybe if there's some really good learning experience, I could be open to work for be an employee, even taking a pay cut for better learning experience. Yeah, I would definitely consider that. I'll definitely be open to do that. Then as you are in a company and you're not learning anymore, which sadly, as for my experience, it happens within 2 years. So after 2 years in a position, you go more into maintenance mode, where you like the one that knows how everything works, but you're not really. You're just maybe you're teaching other people how to do the job in that specific company context, but you're not learning anymore. So from there, when you're not learning, I would say it's time to either move on to another place where you're learning, or go freelance and actually be paid more for your skill, because you can be paid a lot more if by being a specialist expert in something, rather than being the employee that's stuck learning somewhere. So that's why I decided to move on after 2 years. And then there's the third level, which you also see. It's like freelancers that have made enough money and are kind of like they're already, let's say, financially independent. They're already retired. A lot of them would then start a SaaS company later on. So because they just want to work on whatever they find interesting, and they don't care about the money, because maybe they already have a good investment portfolio, so they don't need to work ever again. So they will just start their own software company and doing some SaaS project, maybe creating some app or whatever they find interesting, and they'll just be working on that, and they don't need to make money from day one. So So that's probably the right time to start a SaaS company. That's normally the 3 levels of career path I see as a software developer, where the first level is, I would say that the last, for me, is like the last level is the most desirable, because having your own SaaS project, you just working with something you are deeply passionate about and working on your completely own terms and hours and location independence and time independence. That's like the most freedom you can get. And I would say that also sets you up for the most happiness and fulfilling career, because you design exactly what you want to do. So that's a nice place to be, where you're financially set for life, and you're working, you are retired in the modern sense, where you're not just laying on the beach and sipping margaritas. You're still working, because you're still passionate about work, but you are working on exactly what you want to be working on, your own SaaS startup. So that might be my next step. So I'm definitely open right now to find some partners for a startup project and go into that. That's probably, then I would say that's the next step, and that's like the end destination of the career, because there's not really anything after that. You don't want to stop working, at least not for me. I don't see the point in that. But working on something like a project you're deeply passionate about, and like your own SaaS baby company, and seeing it grow, and building up, even like getting employees on board, and having a good team set up, and just creating something you are completely in control of. That is, I think that's the end goal. But it kind of depends, like what you want. But that's normally what I see, like, after a bunch of freelancers that kind of made a lot of money, and even, let's say, they followed the same career path as me, which I know plenty of people that have already done the same thing. That's actually why I got inspired to do it, because I saw other people that followed the exact same path, and some of them, they're working with their own SaaS companies now, and they're not doing, maybe they're just doing part-time consulting, to make a little bit of money on the side. Some of them not at all, and just working on their own SaaS startup.
Yeah. So just to make it clear, you're basically working as a freelancer, as a programmer, but how do you earn money from consulting and training other developers or other companies?
So yeah, I'm doing both consultancy, and for my website, I'm having my own coding school where I'm teaching advanced Angular development. So a couple of times a year, I run a cohort where you can, people can sign up, and they can join my online coding school.
You can definitely give me all the details, and I can post them on the podcast episode later.
Sure.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically blog, and also a website that you run that's basically teaching and training people. That's great. Yes. So is that profitable, or are you at the start of this journey?
Well, I'm doing pretty well with that combination. It's pretty good, because the consultancy, I'm still make most money from consultancy. But what I'm learning a lot of stuff from consultancy, which makes my course better, because I'm applying what I'm doing what I'm teaching. And whenever I learn something new from consultancy, I can add it to my course, so I can keep it as sharp as possible. So that combination, I think, is very good. Also, it also makes me better, because by teaching it, I'm kind of like quantifying a lot of things and theories, which helps me also just working better with my consultancy work. So it's kind of like two things that kind of like boost each other's.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's very interesting. One thing I keep on asking most of the software engineers lately that decided to start their own career or start their own companies is, what do you think is the future of app development? Like, at the moment, there's an app for everything. If anything, like, everyone's phones is like cluttered with a lot of information and a lot of apps. What do you think is the future of like app development? Do we still have enough room for like more apps to be developed and stuff?
I was thinking in terms of technologies, or in terms of like new apps coming on the App Store? Or...
Yeah, like, if you, let's say you start a new company, you're starting a startup, right? what would the first thing that come in your mind be? Like, oh, I'm going to make an app. I'm going to make an app for this, or a website, or what is in your, the first thing that comes to your mind when you're thinking, I want to become a CEO or a CTO of my own company. How what's your first thought?
I think most people would think it's building an app, which kind of makes sense because it's where the users are. And I think like the statistics are normally when you look at the usage for like a company that has a website and an app, like then I think it's like 70 or 80 or like around 80% would be using the app, and only 20% would be using the website. So it's pretty evident where the users are right now. I think it's around that. It's definitely majority of users today are on mobile. So that's why so many startups are focusing, like even like with banking apps. You see banking apps that has no website but only has an app. Like apps like Revolut, for example, it's all built around the app. So I would say it's definitely the best, since that's what the users want to interact with. Then it definitely makes sense. That's where your startup should be.
Yeah. Perfect. Very interesting career. Very like valuable information you've given us. Do you do anything else aside from working, or do you enjoy like coding during the weekend, or like do you have any other hobbies and stuff?
I dance sometimes. I dance salsa. So I like to when it's pretty locked down in Denmark right now. So I can't really dance too much here, but I might go back to South America again in January. So I can definitely do some more dancing. Also, I'm a singer and a guitarist. So I like to go sing and play guitar, even go to karaoke bars sometimes.
Oh, nice.
and rock the stage. That's a lot of fun. And then I like to work out quite a lot. Like to do running, keep myself active. So yeah,
that's very interesting. How do you find the time? I also, funny you say that, I also sing and play the guitar, and I go running.
Sweet.
But how do you find? Obviously, we haven't really played with my band since like it's been 2 years now. Sadly, in London, things cases are rising again, so it's becoming quite dangerous. But hopefully one day we'll go back to it. So how do you find the time to exercise during the day when you're coding? Do you do it like in the morning or after work?
Yeah, good question. I would do it after work normally. So normally I would like so my work day is normally I read in the first half an hour of the day, where I just catch up on stuff, read like news in whatever helps my daily agenda, and then when I do my work, and then at the end of the work I will probably go to the gym, and then it's time to I go out for dinner or play music or whatever free time activities. But yeah, just focusing on just getting the work done the first part of the day is how I like to do it. And then you have good consciousness when you take the time off at the rest of the day.
Yeah, nice. Perfect. Well, thank you for coming to the show, Christian. Is it Lüdemann?
Lüdemann. Yeah.
Lüdemann.
Yeah.
Nice. Make sure you give me all of the information for your blog posts and your website, your training website, and I will post it with the podcast episode. Thank you very much for your time.
Glad I could be here.